19 children, and 2 teachers dead now. After yesterday's shooting at a Texas elementary school, the attack in Uvalde, about 80 miles west of San Antonio, is the second deadliest school shooting in American history, behind the one at Sandy Hook nearly a decade ago. The Texas Department of Public Safety, DPS, says there are more victims, both children and adults, in hospitals this morning. Investigators believe the 18-year-old suspect shot his grandmother at her home, then fled, crashing his truck in a ditch near Robb Elementary School just before noon Central Time. His grandmother is in critical condition this morning. A DPS trooper described what happened next to NBC's Morgan Chesky.
At that point, the gunman made entry into the school, and complete disregard for human life, just an evil person, started shooting kids, anybody that was in his way, teachers, had no regard for human life.
Just walking through the school, opening fire.
Right, and at that point we do know that he was armed with some type of long rifle. We're still trying to determine exactly what type of rifle, how he obtained that. We do have ATF and FBI here on scene working with us, trying to make those determinations. But once he made entry to the school, he continued shooting children, teachers, anybody that was in his way.
That trooper also says a school resource officer and 2 police officers from the city of Uvalde fired at the suspect, who was wearing body armor. But the officers had to get backup from a tactical team, which ultimately shot and killed the gunman. The state senator says he was told by Texas Rangers the gunman bought 2 assault-style rifles from a store in Uvalde on his 18th birthday. That's just over a week ago. NBC News has not independently confirmed that specific detail. Texas Rangers are leading the state's investigation in Uvalde. They are the primary investigators for the DPS and typically handle high-profile cases. We are now beginning to learn the names of some of the victims of the shooting. A family member tells our sister station in Dallas, fourth grader Uzziah Garcia was among those killed. The father of 9-year-old Mary Jo Garza also confirmed her death. We also learned from a family member, 10-year-old Xavier Lopez was among those killed. KSAT in San Antonio reports his mother was with him at an awards ceremony just hours before this shooting. One of the 2 teachers killed has been identified by a family member. She is Ava Mireles. She was a teacher for 17 years, most recently to 4th graders. A short biography on the school's website notes she loved running, hiking, and biking. A family member told the New York Times that Mireles was married and a mother. The other teacher killed has been identified as Irma Garcia. Her biography on the school website notes she was a 4th grade co-teacher with Miss Mireles. Miss Garcia leaves behind a husband and 4 children. Here with more on the investigation, NBC News investigations correspondent Tom Winter. Also with us, the host of Way Too Early, Jonathan Lemire. He is a White House bureau chief at Politico. MSNBC contributor Mike Barnicle, and New York Times Washington bureau chief Elizabeth Bumiller. Tom, let's start with you and what we know about this shooter, how he got the gun, and what happened yesterday.
Right, still trying to figure out those details, and specifically when these guns are purchased. They do all appear at this initial time, as we sit here and talk about this, to have been purchased legally. As you mentioned, his birthday was on May 16th, born May 16th, 2004. So within the last 8 or 9 days or so, these weapons were purchased legally in the state of Texas. The long gun that's described there, not particularly clear the make and model at this point. One thing that is perfectly clear, as we've come to know all too well after these shootings, is that the impact of those guns that fire a bullet at a very high velocity on kids is especially damaging. And we heard last night that parents were lining up in order to provide DNA to positively identify those children. It's not because they forget what the faces of their kids look like. So I think that underscores the tremendous amount of violence that occurred at that school yesterday. I went back and did something I hoped I never had to do last night, which is review my notes on Newtown, including the report there. It's important for people to know just how quickly and how fast the amount of death and damage that can occur. That was 10 minutes from the moment Adam Lanza first fired to the moment that he killed himself, that incident was over, and we saw what happened there. It's just a very difficult scene to process. So I think at this point, they're going to try to figure out this timeline. We mentioned Newtown not only because of the amount of students that are dead, but also because it's eerily similar to what happened with Adam Lanza, where he shot his mother and then went to the school and carried out that attack. As you mentioned, Willie, there was a shooting of his grandmother yesterday. She is believed to still be alive, at least as of this hour. Obviously going to be critically important to talk to her to try to figure out any sense of what the motive is here. But there's no motive that law enforcement can offer us. There's nothing that we can find online that we might find later today or a posting later today that could possibly provide any sort of justification for what we saw yesterday.